That's a good one.
I mean, he used to host the Man Show. I mean, he's done some pretty outrageous back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, for hee-hees and haw-haws.
No, that's a good joke on top of a good joke.
Yeah, it's a good joke. Funny thing to say. He's had a real problem with Elon from the beginning of this thing, but it's like he's in this leftist thought bubble. He is in the most leftist thought bubble available, which is Hollywood. And, you know, and I think also, you know, he famously, there's some videos of him in blackface, and those came out, and he had apologized for them, and I think he took that hit and like really doubled down the other direction.
Together, Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly completely destroyed Jimmy Kimmel, and yes, it was as vicious as it sounds. Imagine the most brutal, merciless, freshly served clapback sandwich you have ever seen. What exactly did Jimmy say to warrant this? Humiliation in public? Stay tuned, because there are so many incredible moments in this epic battle that you must see to believe.
Hypocrisy is alive and well amongst these sanctimonious leftists. From Kimmel to De Niro to Stephanopoulos, they want you to believe they're better than you, more virtuous, more decent. But we all know the truth. They lie. They sin. They do the very things they accuse you of and the things they say they would never do. Evil things. Like try to destroy people based on feigned outrage from which they spare their own side, or playing politics with a woman's.
The largest late-night celebrity occasionally receives a double wallop from two entirely distinct media jungle creatures, as if the world were aligning in a cosmic joke. That's precisely what occurred when Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly, each in their own unique manner and rage, gave Jimmy Kimmel a live, uncensored, and gloriously brutal tutorial in public humiliation.
There's not a fucking chance in hell that this is funny or gonna work. And when you see those flat, corny, late-night monologue jokes with no audience, Colbert, there's Jimmy Kimmel, there's Fallon. What they're doing is just like reading off of a teleprompter. So a bunch of really good joke writers wrote them some stuff, and then they're playing to the audience, and the audience is like laughing, so they get this feedback, and they know how to do that. They stand there, and there's applause signs, and then there's producers. There's the warm-up guy that's literally telling people to clap. They're like, okay, explaining to the people, okay, when Jimmy comes out, I want a big round of applause. Let's practice this right now. Ladies.
Jimmy first up is Joe Rogan, who is essentially a podcasting god in a cage, battling philosopher's skin. This man doesn't act subtly. Subtlety is for those who like to stay out of conflict. Showing up with a chainsaw when the discourse needs to. Be pruned is Joe Rogan's definition of subtlety. Jimmy Kimmel, on the other hand, was about to discover firsthand what happens when you enter the ring with the podcast king without any gloves on.
Tell you, he's not the worst. The Daily Show has the worst ratings. They only have 366,000 people watching that show. During the Jon Stewart years, it was over 2 million. Now it's down to 300,000. Seth Meyers, absolutely dreadful. He doesn't even have 1 million, 778,000. I mean, in network television, this is, you don't have to pay for it. It's there when you turn on your TV, you plug it in. That's a dreadful number. Greg Gutfeld on cable, which you do have to pay for, it has more than double the numbers of Seth Meyers. Jimmy Kimmel, 1.5 million, averaging, also equally.
The late-night anchor Jimmy Kimmel is well known for his celebrity interviews, embarrassing monologues, and that repeating segment in which he pretends to despise children while hosting a child's birthday celebration. It's the sort of nonsense that has been going on for a long time. Between the political remarks that fall flat like a lead balloon and the rehashed gags, Joe Rogan came to gently remind Jimmy that he might be more like the jester at court, even though he had persuaded himself he was still the king of late nights.
Last night was the 96th Academy Awards show, and while you might have missed it, there was one clear winner. No, not Oppenheimer. It was sanctimonious leftists for their lead role in pretending they are better than you. Winner number 1, Jimmy Kimmel. For the 4th time, Kimmel hosted the Oscars before an adoring crowd of Hollywood stars who laughed and curried favor with the man who wore blackface so many times. Yes, some of the very same celebrities who wanted you to believe they were horrified after yours truly said in 2018 that People used to don dark makeup in order to imitate well-known black celebrities, and it wasn't a big deal. Absolutely ate up the performance by Hollywood darling Mr. Kimmel, whose blackface costumes included his oft-repeated bit as basketball star Karl Malone.
Now, Karl Malone never seen no flying saucer himself, but if he do, that's gonna be a...
Joe's segment, which was more about calling out the lack of originality than it was about comedy, was a full frontal assault disguised as an honest conversation. It wasn't the typical late-night friendly roast. Rather, it was more like the audio, equivalent of a cold bucket of water in the face. He tore apart Kimmel's rehashed punchlines, exposing how stale and predictable they've become. Because, let's be honest, you're not exactly creating new material when you're repeating the same old political zingers from 2012 and calling it comedy. Joe's analysis went beyond simple criticism. It was brutally honest and a reality check. He drew attention to the fact that Kimmel had been depending on safe subjects and avoided genuine risk or novel viewpoints in order to maintain his previous success. That's embarrassing in Joe's perspective, like a UFC fighter entering the octagon without a strategy and hoping the other guy trips. Then there was the element of shock. It was like seeing a lion give a TED talk about how sheep should be eaten, when Joe Rogan did this live on television with every word scrutinized. For a brief minute, you could almost hear the collective jaw drop as the crowd fell silent. Following Joe's brutal takedown, social media went crazy, with videos of it going viral faster than a humorous kitten video with a message. However, Megyn Kelly appears just when you thought the humiliation would be done. The flawless, razor-sharp media veteran whose surgical accuracy allows her to land a punch without shouting, Megyn Kelly was the scalpel if Joe Rogan was the sledgehammer. Getting rid of everything and leaving no space for disagreement.
That sort of self-censorship and the idea of being a more empathetic person is a good thing, right? But as long as it's reasonable. But the thing is, the problem with that kind of stuff is it continues to go in the same direction where more and more things become forbidden and toxic, to the point where, you know, the Elon Musk joking around about my pronouns are prosecute Fauci. Jimmy Kimmel made a tweet back to him. He said, your pronouns are ass and hole.
Megyn's strategy was all about methodical demolition, but Joe's was direct and harsh. Megyn's critique was refined and icy. Instead of using jokes or insults, she skillfully pointed out Jimmy Kimmel's flaws in his honesty and believability. The icy type of silent humiliation that lingers long after the cameras have ceased rolling. She revealed how Jimmy's public character has devolved into an unbalanced patchwork of forced humor and token activism that lacks the authentic edge that initially made late-night TV compelling. Megyn emphasized how Kimmel's humor had veered into the flattering area by making an excessive effort to win over everyone, rather than standing for anything genuine. It's similar to witnessing a circus act attempt to balance burning swords without ever setting one on fire. Impressive until you realize it's all smoke and mirrors with no danger or excitement. It was like seeing an experienced boxer win knockdowns with fluid jabs, since her delivery was so accurate and razor-sharp, while Kimmel just stood there blinking like a deer in headlights. It was obvious that Megyn wasn't there to play nice because the audience could sense the tension and the slight change in energy. She was present to deliver a harsh verdict. With two formidable takedowns from such disparate perspectives, the humiliation was total.
Just this past 2 weeks, they had the Kennedy Center honors the other night where Joe Biden couldn't say Dionne Warwick. He kept calling her Diane, and he didn't know who Barry Gibb was. He kept calling him Billy. You know who else was honored at the Kennedy Center? You know who else? Billy Crystal. Just FYI, do you know who once opened up the Academy Awards in full blackface?
Oh,
Billy
yeah.
Crystal. Billy Crystal. And do you know who's going to be hosting the Academy Awards this year? Jimmy Kimmel. Do you know who's worn blackface repeatedly and spoken inner city sort of urban accent saying she needs to darn those socks? Jimmy Kimmel as Oprah, as a fat-suited, black-faced darning socks.
While Megyn Kelly removed the facade of media credibility to uncover a man fighting to remain relevant in a rapidly changing landscape, Joe Rogan tore down the humorous facade to reveal the staleness underneath. Together, they produced a double knockout that left Jimmy Kimmel looking bloodied and injured, pleading for a cornerman to give up. The nicest part is that nothing was staged or scripted. It was unadulterated, live, and unforgettable. Let's now discuss the aftermath. Because a live TV takedown is more than just a humiliating moment in the modern world, it's a major cultural event. Memes, response videos, and an abundance of hashtags caused social media to go into overdrive. Everyone was taking sides, dissecting every detail, and attempting to determine the implications for late-night television going forward. Everything from Megyn Kelly's surgical media breakdown to Joe Rogan's brutal reality check was widely shared. Online Jimmy Kimmel's name, meanwhile, was popular for all the wrong reasons. For him, it wasn't simply a horrible night, it was a nightmare for his PR. But here's the thing. These kinds of moments go beyond just viral amusement. They indicate that the tides are changing. Late-night television is no longer the uncontested hegemony that it once was. The competition is fiercer, audiences are more astute, and expectations are higher.
And
Did he really?
Yes. And so then I read that, and there was people saying, please don't joke about pronouns. It's transphobic to joke about pronouns. So they were chiding him for participating in a joke about pronouns.
So Jimmy Kimmel was doing it. He was doing it too.
Yeah, he was doing it too.
Yeah. No, he was being accused of joking about it too.
So they were upset at him, even though he was attacking the appropriate person. He was doing it in a manner which is also construed as being transphobic. Like they were saying that his tweet is transphobic.
Do you think in that case, do you think that's him or a writer? Can't you tell?
Jimmy Kimmel?
No, it's him. Joe Rogan embodies the new wave of unvarnished, direct, and raw media. Megyn Kelly is a perfect example of the sophisticated analytical critic who can deftly cut through the clutter. As the world goes on without Jimmy Kimmel, he is mired in the past and attempting to use the same old formula. It's glaringly out of date, like seeing a VHS cassette attempt to compete with 4K streaming. And for that reason, this live TV humiliation was required rather than merely amusing. A man who has been relying on his name recognition and a few catchphrases to remind everyone that celebrity isn't a permanent shield against examination was thrust into the public eye. Particularly when you're on stage alongside two of the most scathing and powerful voices in today's media. And just when you thought things couldn't get much worse for Jimmy Kimmel, they did. This wasn't just one person slapping him in the most delectable way possible. No. The media forces collided in a coordinated cosmic collision. Megyn Kelly, the rhetorical sharpshooter, and Joe Rogan, the human sledgehammer, are firing in, stereo from different directions. The end effect is a destructive symphony that is so expertly staged, you'd believe it was created by Marvel Studios. For a man who had been adrift on the swollen raft of his own legacy, it was the ideal storm of humiliation.
To obscurity. Nobody's going to care anymore. It's like you're seeing it take place with late night television. Nobody gives a fuck about it anymore.
I know.
And it's slowly, you have a bad business model and you're not adapting.
Yeah, the creativity's gone for late night comedy, right? Like that's not really a thing.
First to arrive was Rogan, a bearded wrecking ball. Loud, unrepentant, and driven by the same type of righteous rage you typically save for subpar coffee at the airport. In addition to criticizing, he verbally destroyed the foundation that supported Kimmel's career. The performance had the nuance of a bull charging into a boutique candy store and was unpolished and brutal. However, Megyn appeared just as everyone was still licking their teeth. Kelly calmly transformed the debris into a forensic crime scene while floating as elegantly as ever. Kelly left scars where Rogan left dents. She didn't yell or strike. She merely made a clean, quiet point about what Kimmel had been getting away with for years, the frantic clutching to old monologues as though they were still edgy in a culture that had long since moved on from his jokes. Rogan revealed the artistic deterioration. Kelly brought attention to the moral bankruptcy. They worked together to peel Kimmel like an onion. And like with any excellent onion, the more layers that were revealed, the more everyone in the audience burst out laughing. It was genuinely an artistic medium. One target, two completely distinct takedown techniques. Rogan took a raw, primal approach. He criticized the hollowness, the lack of innovation, and the bland mediocrity being passed off as late-night charm. He approached the situation like an MMA weigh-in combined with a podcast tirade.
Sunday morning show with Stephanopoulos into the evening Academy Awards broadcast with Kimmel and ABC elevating, the blackface lovin' Kimmel. They, at the same time, fired Chris Harrison, host of The Bachelor, for trying to defend one contestant on The Bachelorette for saying, gee, I know I went to this antebellum party, a couple years ago. I guess I didn't see anything wrong with it. And all he said was, are we judging her by today's standards, or are we judging her by, old standards, whatever. He was basically trying to say, are we being too hard on her? Got fired. Chris Harrison has to be fired by ABC. I don't know why, because he's not a committed leftist, because he's not out there more saying all the terrible things about Republicans that Jimmy Kimmel says. So this is them saying, we get it. We're an ally, right? And I guess maybe they're trying to make up with their racist past without ever.
As she sipped her fourth espresso, Kelly's deconstruction had the calmness and intensity of a top-tier prosecutor exposing every falsehood in the courtroom. Megyn, if Joe Rogan broke down the barriers when Kelly entered, she moved the furniture around so that everyone could see how empty the place was. And poor Kimmel. The scathing quiet of a guy witnessing his own career being roasted like a turkey in a cooking feature he didn't approve of. Not a word, not a defense, not even a sheepish smile to lean on the actual kicker. No direct confrontation, no counter-argument, no dramatic musical cues, and no chairs flying across the set. It wasn't WWE. It was the pinnacle of psychological destruction. Even though Rogan and Kelly weren't in the same room, their criticisms blended together like a cruelly honest ballet. You would believe they practiced because it was so good, but that's not the case. This was instinct and the internet, not a show. Oh, it really exploded. While Kimmel's ratings were plummeting, media think pieces were emerging more quickly. Debate shows were unable to determine who caused greater harm. Was it Megyn's scalpel-like accuracy or Joe's realistic throat punching? With one camp supporting Rogan's wake-up slap and another admiring Kelly's assassination by intellect, Twitter turned into a gladiatorial arena of Sid-picking. You would believe a late-night host had just been impersonated by the trending hashtags.
Know what they saw. They saw what we saw. They saw the frail elderly man who needed help getting off the stage. They're just too chicken shit to tell us about it because they accurately deduced that he could still be the Democratic nominee and they don't want to ding him up. Maybe you give Barbara a pass. Who gives a damn what this singer saw or says? But you know what? Jimmy Kimmel happens to be employed by ABC, which happens to have a rather large news organization. And he has been one of President Trump's most vocal critics. Where are you, Jimmy? On vacation? Not good enough. You can still use your thumbs to send out a tweet. You could set the record straight right now, but you won't.
However, the most hilarious aspect of Kimmel was the warning story, not even the visitor. The uncredited star in a viral humiliation story who didn't even receive a line was the unintended main event. That's how thorough the takedown was. When the proof is that clear in 4K, you don't need rebuttals. Now for the actual question that everyone is asking. What follows? After being tagged by two of the most diametrically opposed media heavyweights on the planet, can Jimmy Kimmel regain his prominence, or has his monologue finally stopped speaking? Will he eventually stop making the same old Trump jokes and come up with something creative, or will he simply keep trying awkwardly to be everyone's politically correct uncle while trying to keep up with the kids? There's no denying that this was more than just a bad night. It was a milestone that was broadcast live on television, a break in the late-night smugness fabric. The fact that someone like Kimmel, who was once the favorite of sardonic TV, can be so completely destroyed, without even a direct confrontation, revealed how dangerously out of touch the format has become. Watch the entire clip slowly and with popcorn, because what you're seeing is a generational handoff rather than merely a public humiliation. Just now, the old guard was overthrown. And not by irate mobs, but by two media titans who didn't even bother to look him in the eye while they were doing it. Let's face it, that was the funniest late-night joke in years. What will Jimmy Kimmel do next? It's not exactly a confidence boost to survive a double takedown by Joe Ryan and Megyn Kelly. On live TV, he might return to being cautious in the hopes that the incident slips into obscurity. Alternatively, it's possible that he will examine himself closely and determine how to change before the next wave of media disruptors arrives. This event will undoubtedly be reenacted, examined, and discussed for years to come. It's a humorous, cautionary story, a masterclass in public humiliation, and a reminder that the fastest way to become irrelevant in the media landscape is to get complacent. To be honest, we didn't realize how much we needed that kind of entertainment before we watched Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly offer that kind of stark clarity, because sometimes the finest comedy comes from the most difficult truths. Get your popcorn, then.